Welcome to 101. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. It's election time, and we're interviewing all of our candidates. Today we're in the State House, State Senate, District 38, and we have our incumbent State Senator, Mary Beth Carozza. Welcome, Mary Beth.
It's great to be back, Greg.
So what's it like out on the campaign trail?
I'll tell you, I'm having a lot of fun out there. I continue to do my door-to-door listening visits. And just this past weekend when I was in Delmar, I was knocking on some doors, and a little girl and her mother came out, and I had my Maryland shoes on and started talking a little bit about the State House and oldest working State House in the entire country. And I could see that the little girl was really interested. And we spoke for a few minutes. She wanted to have a photo taken together, and then I went on my merry way. And about probably 2 or 3 minutes later, I feel somebody rushing up, running. I turn, and the little girl was behind me, and she goes, "I just want to walk with you a little bit more." She goes, I just want to be with you. May I help you?" And I said, "Sure, you can go up." And so first of all, "Do you have permission from your mom to be with me?" She said she did. And then we walked. I let her basically ring the doorbells, and she was with me. And it was just very uplifting to see that she was that interested in my public service and just going out and seeing that I was listening to my constituents.
You were in the House of Delegates in 38C for 4 years, and then you got elected to the State Senate, which is all of District 38. How's that changed for you politically in terms of your service?
Greg, it is the best Senate district in the entire state of Maryland. It has everything when you think about it. It has the tourism, hospitality, economy, and how we drive the economy for Maryland. It has farming, fishing, forestry. I represent all three higher education institutions, Salisbury University, University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and Warwick. We have Tidal Health, we have AGH, and I want to give them a shout out because during COVID, the way they served our constituents and took care of them. And then if you think about all the small business operators in all three counties. So when I talk about my district, I said, it has everything. And the reason it's the best Senate district, it all comes down to the people. And the diversity of it, and everybody pretty much wanting to work hard for our shore way of life. So I'm doubling down. I'm making a commitment to run again for my reelection. I'm working very hard for it because I know we have to fight a little bit harder on this side of the bridge.
Right. Now, in Worcester County, there's so many small businesses, just an amazing number of service businesses, small businesses, Wacomico, small business, plus a lot of manufacturing. That really is a really economic challenge, isn't it?
So it's quite a balancing act, but I have to tell you, I'm so proud of how everybody pulled together during the pandemic because, as you know, some of those businesses were not able to operate or operate on a very limited basis. So we had to really focus on breaking down the pandemic in three areas. One was just the health and recovery of our constituents. And I have so much confidence in the health care in my district that I knew we would be on track there. Then you had the economic recovery. How do we make sure these businesses, particularly those that were struggling before the pandemic hit, how do we make sure they survive and thrive? And so we made sure, working with Governor Hogan, with the Department of Commerce, that the assistance would be there for those businesses, and then to do everything we can to make sure that their recovery is strong for the long haul. And then that third part of the recovery I'm still very concerned about is the social recovery, how this has impacted our children, how this has impacted our seniors, that isolating effect where there have been some long-term effects of it. So, I am absolutely committed to continuing to make sure we stay on a strong recovery in all of those areas.
You mentioned Governor Hogan. Everyone's always known about your ties to Governor Hogan. He's been a friend from way back. You served together in the Ehrlich administration. He's going away now. We have new candidates for governor. Right now, Wes Moore, the Democrat, is leading. It's presumed he'll probably win. How's that going to position you as a state senator with a Democratic governor?
So I just want to first of all say that Governor Hogan has been so good for the shore. And when I think about my constituents and the priorities of my constituents, and like in each one of my counties, he was right there for those priorities. So whether it was expanding the Ocean City Convention Center, whether it was in Wacomico, downtown Salisbury revitalization, the improvements at Shorebird Stadium, to in Somerset County, staying on track to extend natural gas into Somerset County, a priority for over 25 years for the locals, and of course the improvements made to the visitor center in Somerset County. So all of these priorities, Governor Hogan listened to the shore, made those his priorities, and we were successful in getting those done. Moving forward, no matter who the governor is, I am going to continue to make sure that our priorities are elevated to the highest level. I've always had good working relationships in a bipartisan way. That's the only way you can get anything done, as you know, in the Maryland General Assembly. So I would like to think that I'm going to be positioned, if I work hard for my reelection, and I can go back with a strong reelection and say, I really understand the needs of my constituents. I've been listening to them. These are their priorities. Elevate those, be able to work with the new governor, the new administration, and I might note, a whole new Maryland General Assembly. And I believe that I will have a heads up having some of the experiences that I've had working in an executive branch way back with Governor Ehrlich, so understanding the executive branch, with a new Maryland General Assembly, having the experience on both the House of Delegates and in the state Senate, that I'm going to position my 3 counties, District 38, to be in a position of strength.
It seems like there's so many culture wars going on within politics right now, but when I hear our local delegation, East Shore delegation talk, it's not about the culture wars, it's about getting things done and getting recognition. Sometimes it's about preventing bills, restrictive bills from affecting us, but really it's more about, nuts and bolts stuff, not a culture war.
I would say it's more about having people from the other side of the bridge, across the bridge, especially the members of the Maryland General Assembly who drive policy, understand our way of life on the shore. It's one of the reasons, Greg, I brought down a bipartisan group of senators and delegates to actually go into a poultry house in Parsonsburg in the heat in August, and I wanted to educate them, to let them know that perhaps their perception of poultry farming wasn't the reality. And I'll never forget one of the comments that one of the senators from the other side of the bridge made. He basically said, after he went into the poultry house in August, he goes, "Oh, it's cooler inside here than it is outside." He saw the humane way that the chickens were being treated. He saw that if they were hungry, they went up and automatically ate. If they were thirsty, they could automatically drink, that they were spread out. And part of that, there is no way, unless those members saw it in person, they would ever have the reality of our way of life. So I'm going to continue to do that. I also did that and took a group of senators and delegates out on the Maryland coastal bays to let them know that we should focus on the Maryland coastal bays just as much as we focus on the Chesapeake Bay. So that's what I try to do. Take those relationships, those partnerships, make sure that those who are in the majority understand our way of life. So when they go to either introduce bills or amendments or different policies, that we basically say not everything fits the shore, not one size fits all. We have to be sensitive to our way of life on the shore.
You've had to address some pretty high-wire issues in your 8 years in the General Assembly. Which is your favorite story of accomplishment where you feel like you did your job as a senator and you're really proud?
When I think back that it took us 5 years to pass Wade's Law, and as you know, that legislation came locally where we had 2 Worcester Roads workers, one struck and killed, and the other who had life-threatening injuries, Wade Pusey. And what happened at the local level is that the state's attorney then came and said, we don't have a law in place, a fair law in place for life-threatening injuries through criminally negligent driving. It was only $500. And here this, had impacted Wade's life. He had to change his position in Worcester County, kind of come inside and do different type of work. So it wasn't only life-threatening, it was life-sustaining. So they brought to me, the state's attorney in Worcester County, said we need to increase the penalties for criminally negligent driving causing life-threatening injuries. And, 1 year it passed the House when I was in the House of Delegates, but didn't pass the Senate. Then I'm elected to the Senate, and They didn't want to take up any laws that increased penalties. But I knew, and our team knew, that it was the right thing to do was to increase those penalties. And to Wade Pusey's credit, he would come up every session and testify. And finally, we were able to pass that in 2021. And so that is definitely one of the achievements that shows if you believe in something, that you just persevere and you keep supporting your locals for a successful passage.
It's funny, in terms of how the House of Delegates is set up with the House of Delegates and the state Senate, you know, a lot of the ideas emerge from the House, from the people, the politicians are closest to the people in theory, and then the Senate is what described as the saucer that holds the hot cup. So things kind of originate in a lot of ways from the House, but then the senators decide whether it's going to progress or not. Is that true, and is that a way that you feel, and how is it being in a role like that?
So I really found the difference from going to the House of Delegates to the state Senate. Number one, you're not only a senator for your district, and they are bigger districts, but you are more a senator for the entire state of Maryland. Because you're one of 47, you're in a position where you really have to convince your colleagues of why your policy, or what you're proposing, is good not only for your district but for the entire state of Maryland. And so we were able to have several successes, as I mentioned, on Wade's Law, just to say all we're looking for is a fair penalty for this criminally negligent driving action and causing life-threatening injuries. For instance, we had to convince our other senators of why we wanted to go forward with natural gas in Somerset County. We had environmentalists from the other side of the bridge that were bringing up concerns, and it was pointed out that those environmentalists and others that were raising concerns are from counties where they have natural gas, and Somerset County was just striving to bring natural gas to the county for the first time. So you have to be persuasive, and you have to really make your arguments on fairness. And that's what I've tried to do. And again, part of it to be effective is to make sure they understand our way of life. So that's my focus, is to keep listening to my constituents, making sure I understand the priorities, and then elevating them so we can have successes here on the shore.
Okay, give us your 1-minute pitch. Why should the voters of District 38 re-elect Mary Beth Carozza?
So I will keep working on partnerships. I'm very proud of my relationships at every level, whether it's municipal, county, state, federal, private sector, nonprofits. And again, I see this as a team effort. And if you look back over the 4 years, we've had many successes, and it was through those partnerships. So I am completely committed to continuing to work my heart out for my district.
She's Mary Beth Carozza. She's running for re-election to the State Senate, District 38, Wycomico, Worcester, Somerset counties, and we're thrilled she had time to be with us here today. Thank you, Mary Beth.
Thank you.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. Be sure and see all the candidate interviews on the PAC 14 YouTube page.